test, test. I think we may have it now. Does everybody have sound now? Oh, it's okay, Linda. I think I have it turned back on. We'll see here. If you can now hear me, please say so in the comment section, everybody. Testing, 1, 2, 3, test, test, test. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, so that was new. And, well, now you can hear Puffin squeaking his rat baby toy. All right, that was on my part, everybody. Hi, Mia. Hi, Linda. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Molly. Yes, we are going to get started. Hi, Beverly. Oh my goodness. So what I didn't say much before y'all made me aware that that I wasn't broadcasting sound, but we are now. And what I was saying earlier, I'm pretty wiped out from my trip, but we are going to get this quilt top completed today, including the borders. I'm so happy to be here. So happy all of you are here. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Quilts in Italy. Those of you that are new, this is what this series of piecing is all about. And on page 90 of this quilt book is the quilt that we are going to be working on and finishing today. And it's on page 90. Right here it is. That's what we're making today. Right here. Now, I didn't have K fabric for this quilt top, so I substituted fabric and I made mine out of Tula pink fabric. So you're going to see what that looks like. If you are following the exact instructions in this book to cut the borders, cut them exactly to the length that it says so in the directions, and it will fit together perfectly. I had to alter my pattern a little bit, so the measurements I might be saying for my borders will not be what it is for your borders. For instance, when you go to page 92, right here is where it gives you the border cutting instructions right here. So I made 2 less rows. I put 12 rows across instead of 14, but everything else on my end will be basically the same, so it's all good. Here is where I'm at. I had the last episode, I got all of my single rows, my vertical rows piece and 2 rows set together, see here? And now I just have to continue making units like this. There's the top. There's how that Z piece fits in. And we're going to get all of this made before we attach our borders. Okay. I really had to dig deep into my Tula pink stash to come up with a proper border fabric for this. So you'll see what that looks like in just a little bit. But I'm going to swap my camera and we're going to get started. Wonderful, Molly. So Sandra, there's no way I can, the only time you don't square the quilt top, Sandra. You do that, you square your quilt after it's quilted, okay, before you put binding on. And I will be doing a separate video on that in the future. It will not be live because I cannot have that room on a camera for technical reasons. But Sandra, when you piece your quilt top, it should be square at that point. And the biggest tip I can give for that, measure your borders and cut them for the sides the exact same length, and for the tops the exact same width. That way your quilt top will come out square. When people talk about squaring up a quilt, they're not talking about the top, they're talking about the finished quilt. I hope that helped. Okay. So, let's see here. Making sure there's no other questions before I get started. I'm going to swap my camera now. Boop, 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 boop. Press that button. There we go. And now we are going to get started with the rest of this piecing. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've already got 2 of these vertical rows pieced like I just showed you. So I'm going to continue making units like, oops, wrong camera, like this, okay? Notice, I'm going to back that lens up. And I will move my coffee before I start sewing, no worries. But I've got 2 rows, vertical rows. The column, you piece it in the column, set the columns together. So I'm calling those rows. But horizontally, like this, the zigzags going across, and you'll see what I'm talking about as we get more of this pieced. The pattern calls for 12 rows going across this way, not 12. The pattern calls for 14. I only did 12 on mine. That's one difference in how I altered the pattern. Simply because of the amount of the fabric choices I had, I didn't have enough of those patterns. Okay, Sandra, you've quilted it, then yes, now that would be to square it up. And I will have to do a separate video on that, Sandra. Just keep it on hand and I'll show you how to do that on a video. Okay, so if you look at my little plastic tote, here are all of my vertical piecing rows all made. And I have 2 different stacks. And I just want to make sure I'm going to start with this fabric here at the top each time. And then I'm just going to lay row number 2 on it. Right here like this. Right? Let me look at this one I've got done again, make sure. But I think that's it. There's the top. Nope. Almost made a boo-boo. And this I would have to rip out. You all know I don't like to rip out stitches. Okay, so that will be that. Okay. All I'm going to do is layer these together. And I'm going to have a long seam going all the way down. Pick my Q01. I'm going to do 2 millimeters on my stitch length because these are long rows. And something I usually don't do in piecing, but on this, when I sew rows together, I do tie off at the beginning and end. And what I did, notice, this is the side I'm going to sew right here. All of these seams will line up perfectly. Check that out. And all I'm going to do what's called nesting. When I line those up, I'm going to flip the seams in opposite directions and then they'll butt right up against each other. Okay, you get another drink of my coffee and I'm going to set it to the side. Thank you, Mia, you just reminded me. Yes, yes, Beverly, if you go under live videos, that's where all of these videos are located. And it will actually say Cool Zigzag. This is either the second or third one. I'm quite honestly not sure. My brain's not functioning quite right just yet today. But yes, all my live videos are recorded so that you can go back and rewatch them as many times as you want to. Excuse me. And they're all titled, so it makes it super easy to do, to watch them in order. Okay. It's very important when you're setting these rows together for this particular quilt but you do not stretch the fabric as you're sewing, because these are all bias edges and it's super easy to actually stretch it, and then you'll get a rippled seam, and you don't want that. Just let the machine guide pull the fabric in all on its own. All we're doing here is lining up seams and guiding the fabric into the presser foot. Now, you can do this on any straight stitch machine. All we're using today are straight stitches. Super easy to do on any machine, sewing machine. Happened to be on the Solaris today. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my seam guides on, so I have that visual, and I have it set for 1/4 inch. And if you see those lines, I'll cross my finger right here. Let me zoom in. Oops, wrong way. There we go. Those are the projected seam lines. The red line is where the needle goes. The green line out here to the edge, you run that right along the edge of your fabric and you'll get consistent 1/4 inch seams that way. And that's the key to piecing quilts. You want your seams to remain consistent. And that way everything will just line up ever so nicely and neatly and easily. And where I'm stopping at, I'm stopping as soon as I hit that seam line, so that seam line is locked down before I move on to the next one. And keep the edges of your fabric lined up. There we go. That's how easy it is to do. Last week we sewed all of these diamonds together and made all these long rows. And then the week before that we cut everything. We were cutting everything. And down in the description of the video, these, I cannot give out the pattern to any of these quilt tops because these patterns are Cafe Facet. And if you get that book, Quilts in Italy by Cafe Facet, there are 20 quilt patterns in it, and those are the quilt tops we are going to be piecing. We're going to make all of those quilt tops in that book. Okay. Just moving right along. Now we're going to line up the corner of the pieces down here. Put my finger there. Now you could take the time and go in and pin all this together if you wanted to. Is that right? Let me just check something at my end here. Just want to make sure everything is lining up like it's supposed to. Hold on. That just doesn't look right for some reason. Oh, I know why. Wait a minute. I think I messed up. I think I'm going to have to rip out stitches, everybody. Hold on here. Yeah, those two should not end up together. I made a boo-boo. I made a boo-boo somewhere. And I see it on this one too. There and there. Okay. So I gotta check this out before I go any further. Yes, Linda, I do have that, yes. Okay. So how did I mess this up? There's that. Let me see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm gonna double check my placement here. That's correct. That's correct. That's not correct. I see. This should have been, no, that is correct right there. It's correct. 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 That's correct. These two aren't. Okay. Okay, so that means, gosh, I hope I don't have to rip all of these out. So this one is correct. And that means I have to find my seam ripper and do what I do not like to do, which is rip out stitches, but you know what? That it is what it is, everybody. And let's see here. Where is my seam ripper? Ouch. I think it's right in here. No. That was not planned for. I would have had that laying out there. Okay. Here's my tweezers. Okay, so, gosh and golly, I'm gonna have to rip it out to up here and fix these 4 pieces right here. Let me just back this out some. Oh yes, Beverly, I will certainly be going over it all. I have a whole series of videos planned for that. Okay. Okay. Let's get that going on. And Beverly, those videos will be on my Friday night presentations. That's where I'll be going over those new Solaris features. Well, this isn't going to be as horrible as I thought it was, unless I have to do this to unless I made this boo-boo on every single row that I've pieced over there. But it's okay, you know, this is part of it. That's all I can say. Unfortunately, this is not the type of boo-boo you can put an applique over, so that will not work. Oh, Linda, if you have the Solaris, trust me, you want the new upgrade to it, to upgrade it to the new Solaris Vision. If you're a quilt maker, and since you're watching me, I assume you are, it has got some really cool features for, you can do edge-to-edge quilting in the hoop on the Solaris using the projector, and it's the easiest method I've ever used to do edge-to-edge quilting on. Okay. If I can at least get this started, I can see where I'm at. Let's see here. Rippy, rippy, rippy. Okay. Once you get it started, it's a little easier to rip then. There we go. You know what, it's okay. We're just going to sit here and chat while I'm doing this. Oh yes, Linda, you definitely call and tell them you want it, because the sooner your name gets on the list, the sooner you will get it. There we go. Okay, got that ripped out. Now, confused. I ripped off the wrong one, everybody. I'll have to sew that one back on. That one was correct. This is the one I gotta fix. Oy vey. Here we go. Okay, this is the one I needed to rip off. So that's that one there. I've got white thread, and it really blends in with this fabric for piecing. Much more than I thought it would. I can't hardly see where the stitches are to rip from the top of the seam. Once you get them started, it's easier to do. It's all good. Got a nice big seam rippers. I think it's in by the long arm. I think that's where it's at. That's the one I was really looking for. This is the seam ripper that comes with all of our machines. You know, today most machines come with a seam ripper. Okay, there's that. Now then, that will go there. And this one should have went like that. I had flipped it. So I'm going to take this one off as well and move it down here. And everybody, it just would not have looked right if it just went ahead and sewed it as it was. It wouldn't have followed the pattern, the zigzag pattern that this quilt pattern is named for. So it's all good. At least I know now what to have to look out for. There would only be like three more I might have to do this to when I get to it. Okay. Almost there. Then we can start sewing again. Almost. Come on. There we go. Now you're free. Now you're free. There we go. Okay, so those two go together, those two prints. So there we go. Now all I have to do is sew this back onto this end. Right? Right. Right there. So, okay. Now I know what I got to do. First, I'm going to sew on my little end cap. Yes, Linda, that's wonderful. That new 10 by 10 magnetic hoop, some of the retailers are offering that as a free add-on if you go ahead and get that upgrade ordered. Once they stop offering that introductory special, those hoops will be available for a separate purchase, and I can tell you they're going to be at least $400 when they're not offering it with that. So that's a wonderful deal. Okay, so there's that. Yes, I'll just finger press that. Then I gotta sew this here on this end, right here. Okay. I'm going to leave this, start this corner right here about a 1/4 inch down from the tip. It's really easy to line that up properly when you have something with a projector with the projected seam guides. Just want to make sure I don't sew all the way over into that next row. Then I have to sew this piece back on over here because I never should have took that off to begin with. But it is what it is, what it is, what it is. Okay, here we go. Finish up that seam from which I started and discovered I had a big boo-boo. Woohoo! Okay. I'm just going to start 1/2 inch where I cut my thread, and that'll tie down all the ends and everything, and it'll be good to go. Now we're back on track, getting these 2 rows sewn together, these 2 vertical rows. Okay. Oh, absolutely, Mia. I would probably have, if I had it all sewn together and caught that, I would have just called that a creative statement, because I wouldn't have ripped it out at that point. I'll just be honest. I just wouldn't have done it. Okay, so that one's all set like it's supposed to. It matches the previous endpoints. So, because this will then go on together like that. But I'm going to get all of these units made first before I sew the 2-row units together. Okay, so there's 1. There's 2, and I'm going to keep this close by so I know how to double check for it. So that one definitely would go there. Okay. Put down my presser foot just to hold that in place. And this one was the problem one. Let's see if this one's going to be persnickety also. That definitely goes right there like so. Let's check the other end. And yes, that one has the same. No, wait, does it? Oh, hold on. I think this one's correct, everybody. Yay, that one's correct. I don't have to rip this one out. That is in the proper place. Yay. So maybe that'll be the only one I will have had to rip out, everyone. I see I have to redo that seam though. Don't know what happened there. See, that seam's loose. I must have ran out of a bobbin and then changed and forgot to finish the seam. So I'll just do that right now. It's all good. Okay. See, everybody, I don't care how long a person has been sewing, we all have moments. And unfortunately for me, when I have a moment, it's usually on camera for the world to see. Okay, so there we go. This is the proper orientation. And we're going to get these 2 rows sewn together next. Okay. Yay. Happy about that. So I'm going to get my 2 little end pieces nested together. I'm going to nest those seams. Now, if you're an ironer and you like to iron it every step of the way, by all means you can do so. I'm personally not going to press it until I get ready to put it in the frame to quilt it. Simply because I have to press it then anyway, and I'm not being super picky about having to have the seams pressed open or anything for this one, because I am nesting all the seams together. There's the next one. We're just going to match the seams as we go. I don't even really, you don't even have to pin this part together. Now, when I sew on the borders, as you're going to see, I am going to pin everything down when I attach my border. That way I know it will fit like it's supposed to. It will properly fit. Now, this coming weekend, I will not be doing a Quilts in Italy. I will be in Texas. But I still might do something at the 5 o'clock shop. Let me think here. No, I can't. I will be on the road on that Saturday. I will be driving. So, but Friday night, I will be live from Austin, Texas, and I'll get that scheduled and on the agenda. There we go. Okay. Oh, thank you, Sandra. Oh, it used to really bother me when I had boo-boos now, but you know what? It doesn't bother me anymore because it's a way for me to learn. I actually learn and say, oh, I should have checked that closer or done something a little different. But I know it's beneficial for everybody to do troubleshooting live. That is just something we all have to end up doing. Every project you do, you're going to troubleshoot something. I don't care what it is. So that one's all nice and neat. Okay, that's 3 units. That should be halfway for this step. And there's the end, and there's the beginning. There's the beginning there. Wait a minute, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. Hold on. I gotta look at this again. Why is that? I may have found another boo-boo. Imagine that. Nope, that is correct. Okay. At the top, they meet. Okay. So, right there, that is correct. I'm gonna check the bottom edges to make sure those are correct. And yes, that is correct right there. Those should be together. Yay! Don't have to rip that one out either. Woohoo! I'll be shocked if I don't have at least one more to rip out, everybody. I think I was pretty tired when I set all these together the last go round. Okay. Those all lined up. There we go. I'm just going to match the seams and then nest the seams, which means you turn the seams in opposite directions right there. In here. Oops, wrong way. There we go. When those are nested, that's what it looks like. And then we're just going to do our 1/4 inch seam all the way down. And let's see, I got to rethread my needle up. Okay, now we can stitch that down. But yay, this quilt top will be done today. Linda, I'm going to be teaching classes in Austin at So Much More. I'm teaching Palette 11 classes. Yes, you know, it's a love-hate relationship for many people. But as long as you have the tools, it's really, truly not that bad to have to rip out stitches, unless you're having to do it on a long arm, and then it's never fun. The only thing that ranks a close second to having to rip out long arm stitches, those are the worst, is in embroidery. If you're going to have to rip out embroidery stitches, that's the absolute. After a long arm, embroidery stitches are the hardest to rip out. Just keep on keeping on till we get the end of till we get to the end of that seam. And we have now 2 more set together. I'm going to open it up as I drag it through. It's really good. Oh, those match perfectly. Yay. And then everyone, after I have it all, like I said, I will give it a good press to flatten up any, especially here where there might be a little bit of bulk where all the 4 quarters meet on these diamonds. I'll just give that a good flat press. There we go. Perfect. Oh, wonderful, Linda. I have seen those. Those are really, really cool. Okay, I think I have 2 more sets to go. Because now I remember what I am going to do with mine, since I had to I altered the pattern. I just put an extra row going, an extra column going up and down, the vertical column. I put an extra column. The book calls for 8 vertical columns of pieces, vertical rows. I decided to do 12 because my numbers just came out a little more even for the amount of fabric that I had to do this with. Okay, that's correct. And that is correct right there. Okay, we're good. We are good to go. Okay. yes, those beginning seams, and I'm going to back stitch in the beginning. Okay, and we're off. Another reason I altered the pattern, I wanted my quilt to come out not perfectly square, but more square than what it would have called for in the pattern in the book. Plus, I only had a pool of 8 different fabrics to use for these diamonds, and in the book I think you have 12. So I just think it came out better that way. For my circumstance. I will end up making another one of these once I can locate and source all of the different fabric for it. I personally have some difficulty finding some of the fabric in that book for this one. So I just modified it and went with my Tula Pink fabrics instead. And that's a great thing about the the Quilts in Italy patterns. You can use any fabric as far as that goes. It's definitely funner though when you can use the actual fabric that's in the pattern. Okay, Molly, hold on. Okay, Mia, does the Altair have the green? So the Altair, it only comes in one color, Mia, but oh wait a minute, does it? I think it's only one color, but you only get one line on the Altair. With the Solaris, you get 2 lines, one for the needle and one for the edge. On the Altair, you can set that laser for either the needle position or for the edge of the fabric. And Molly, let me back my camera out. This is what I'm pretty sure you're referring to is this. This is the Solaris 30-foot kit. When you open it up, and you zip it open, all of your feet are in these little the pouch comes with all of the 30 feet also. I think you can buy the pouch separately. I think, I'm not 100% sure, because I got mine with all the feet, but then you can just, each little compartment is zippered. It just makes it a super duper handy way to store all your goodies inside of this bag. I think that's what you're referring to, Molly. Okay, let me get a sip of my coffee before I get started back. Okay, so that one's done. I've got one more set to do, and then we can start sewing these units all together. Yes, one more set. So that's the top, right there. And that's the bottom right there. That's the top right there. And that bottom is sewn correctly. So I just made one boo-boo on that. I only had to rip out one section of that, so I'm happy with that. I really honestly thought I was going to have to rip out every one of these like I did in the beginning all the way across, but yay, I don't. That makes it a very good day. Yay. Okay. So I'm lining up these two seams at the very beginning. Let me zoom back in closer. There we go. Yes, right here. I'm going to match the seams and then flip each seam top and bottom in opposite directions, and that's what is called nesting a seam. Okay. Yeehaw. And we're off. Get these lined up as we go. There's actually this, I pulled from like 4 different collections of Tula Pink fabrics. I'll talk about that, Vanessa, here at the end of this episode. I also have to look at my calendar to see when I can honestly start it also. But I will have the K fabric that's in the book for the next one. Let's get this on down there. And once I complete this row, I will have 5 more seams, and then this piece portion will be done, and all I'll have left to do is to attach the borders. Corner lined up perfectly. Move that over, nest them. Okay. And that part is now done. I'm pretty sure in this next one that I'm thinking of, there's a lot of Cafe stripes and polka dots, and I know those are readily available for sure. Some of the prints is what can be hard to, and you can usually find the print, but finding it in the color that's in the book can sometimes be a challenge. Let's just have we're just going to have a quick look at the book since we're talking about it. Hold on. So, let me back this up. There we go. I think I had one picked out. I thought I had mentioned it a while back, but let's see here. Ooh, yes, this is the one I want to do next, right here. It's called Lacy Log Cabin. It's on page 62 in the book, page 62. If you have the book in front of you, everyone, if you're watching, have a look at that. There is the fabric list and the colors that you need. But I think this reminds me of a quilt that I saw my Meemaw have that was made out of feed sack fabric. I'm going to get a little closer and closer so you can see what that looks like. Isn't that beautiful? I think that'll be a lot of fun to make. I do think the cutting part's going to be complex, but we'll see. There are 16 different blocks that are repeated 4 times each, giving a total of 64 blocks. Oh, it measures, the finished quilt will measure approximately 72 by 72 inches. Hold on. Cutting 3.5-inch squares, fussy cut the patches for the center with the flower motif. For the logs, cut 1.25-inch strips across the width of the remaining patchwork as follows, and it gives a number right there. So I can tell you right now, when we start this, if you want to follow the exact cutting directions, do so. I am going to alter this to make it easier to cut. It's not easy to cut 1.25-inch strips. It's way easier to cut 1.5-inch strips. So that'll just make the quilt just a little bit bigger, but I will do the math on that before we really get into this. And let me just have another look. This is one at the top of the list that I want to make. Let me look back here a little further. See what else is in here. Yeah, this is the one, everybody, that we're going to do next. I may alter the actual pattern because there's the block assembly diagram for it. And there's the 16 different blocks that you have to make 4 each of to do this with. Let me see what I can come up with on cutting 1.25-inch strips out the easy way, because with a rotary cutter and a ruler, yeah, that's going to take a while. If you have AccuQuilt, I'm not sure if they make a 1.25-inch strip cutter, but there might be a Creative Grids ruler that would make that a whole lot easier as well, so I'm going to have to research that. But this, or a version of this, is what we are going to make next. If I decide to redo the math on it, I will give out the cutting instructions. Let me see. If I alter it, I'll give out the cutting instructions for my version of it. But this is, but to make it the size exactly and using the fabric in the book, you'll have to cut them out at 1.25-inch strips. The centers of these you would cut at 3.5 inches squares. And you would want to fussy cut the centers so that they lined up exactly in the center of the block, as you see in the photos here. Okay. A kit would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Ooh-wee. Okay, so I'm going to get back to this now. Let's have another sip of coffee. So now we're just going to join 2 of these units together. What to do now, since I know everything's correct, is just match up the tops properly, like this. And as you can see, by using the same 2 fabrics going across the width of the quilt, there comes that zigzag effect. Okay. So I will just have to do, I think, 3 of these units. I think. Is that right? We'll see. approximately 3 of these. Use them all, have them all sewn together. And as I come to each seam, I will nest them and line them up. These diamonds are really easy to line up like this. Oh my goodness. Super duper easy. When sewing them together like this. Now if those were if those were the dreaded Y seams, yeah, it wouldn't be going this quickly, everybody. Who likes to sew together a Y seam? Got to be at least one of you watching that likes to do Y seams. Probably not too many people like doing those. Okay, and we're coming to the end. And once again, we're going to nest that seam together. We're going to take our time and get it nested really good. There we go. All right. Let's have a look at that. Oh, yes, kits of yardage, absolutely. I tell you, sometimes when you buy a kit, if you're not super careful cutting it, you might not have enough fabric. Sometimes, depends who puts the kit together, because I've had it happen to me and I'll have to scramble for yardage at the last minute. I'm just double checking to make sure all of those are lining up like they're supposed to, and they are. But there's 4 vertical rows put together. 4 vertical rows. There's that one's done. Now we'll set 2 more sets together. I'm going to line up that top edge first. Just drop that foot and hold it. Right there. Then the top edge of this one. Right there like that. Okay. Oops. That. Hold on, everybody. Just got to touch up this one seam for whatever reason. Just doing a little minor repair. There we go. When I had first sewn that on last week, I must have not done something quite right because there was a little gap in the seam there. Better to find something like that now than after you've loaded it in a long arm to quilt it. Trust me on that. Because usually at that point, then you have to do a hand sewn repair. Hi, Sarah. You should be here, Sarah. You should be hearing okay because it shows my microphone is picking up. Check your settings, Sarah. We did have some audio difficulties in the beginning, but I think now the sound thing should be working fine. Everyone, if you can hear, just say, yes, I hear. Just at least one of you, please. So we know that that's not it. That's not on my end. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Sarah, check and make sure you don't have your speakers muted. I know a lot of you watch this on a mobile device, your phone or your tablet, and I really can't help you if that's the case because I've never done that, to be perfectly honest. I always watch YouTube or Facebook for the most part on my computer. But I do have on my computer screen right here, it's where I have my streaming software up. So I have a computer program that controls the cameras and the audio. And there is a bar there that actually fluctuates and moves back and forth. That is actually my audio signal. And as I'm talking, it is jumping from left to right and right to left. And that's how I know that my microphone is actually picking up. Okay, Sarah. Let me just check something here. Test, test. Let's see here. Hold on. Let me check something. See if I can make it any louder. Test. And let me check one more thing. Advanced. No, no. No, it shows on my end everything is as it normally is when I broadcast from here. And then we'll match the end of that seam, and we'll be good to go. Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Sandra. Okay. So I have one more unit like this to set together. I'm going to align the top of my piecing on these units, what will be at the top of the quilt. Okay, right there. And this will be the top of the quilt as well. And those fabrics should just line up that way. Well, that's interesting, Sarah. I don't know what's up with that, honestly. Excuse me. But it's always something with these computers and phones and tablets. Oh my goodness. It's always something. Just like Friday night from the hotel room, I was having audio issues on my end at that point, simply because I was on an unfamiliar laptop that I hardly ever use and blah, 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 but we got it going. It seems like, oh, especially when you do live things. When I do filmed recordings, yeah, you can edit out any type of movie or anything if you want to. But when you're live, if something's going to go wrong, that's when it's going to happen. Oh, wonderful, Sandra. Awesome. You're a mobile groomer? Cool. You get to play with fur babies all day long. I'm just lining up the seams as I go. And they're just nesting right together like they're supposed to. They're playing nicely today. This end, then that step is complete. All of my rows are joined together now, so I have 3 units of 4 vertical rows sewn, which means I've only got 2 more seams to go. Woohoo! And then I'll get to put the borders on it. Okay, so I'm just going to start with this one since it's under the machine now. I'm just going to open it up and pull it down in front of me. There we go. And now, put that foot down to hold it in place. I'm going to take this one and line it up right up here. That is correct. I'll go right there like that. Then here's the next seam. This will have, I've only got 2 more times to do this one, and this part will be done. Oops, there we go. That was not the reverse key. If you press that start and stop button, everybody, it will not sew in reverse. And of course, bobbin thread. I'm surprised that one lasted that long. Oh wow, that's awesome, Sandra. Thank you. Okay, let me put in a fresh bobbin. I have a bunch of bobbins wound. There was actually more thread on that one, but you know what? Not going to worry about it. I'll just put in a fresh bobbin. I always wind up several bobbins before I start sewing. Okay. Now I'll just go back about half an inch from where I stopped. My bobbin ran out, and just sew back over it, and then it anchors everything down. It's all good. Then I always stop like I did there, right as I made sure that seam is not going to budge. I'm stopping the needle pretty close to where the seam is. Okay. I will tell you, Sandra, little Puffin, he loves to get groomed. Oh my gosh. Whether we're doing it or a groomer's doing it, he will just sit and he will be so still. Loves getting groomed. He's not crazy about taking a shower. He knows when he goes in the bathtub, he's getting wet. And he doesn't really like to get wet. Oh yes, Beverly, I love pre-wound bobbins, let me tell you. Especially in embroidery and in my long arms, I use them as much as possible. And I sometimes will use long arm, pre-wound bobbins for piecing as well. I don't mind winding bobbins to sew with as long as I wind quite a few in the beginning. But yes, I love pre-wound bobbins. Absolutely. And we're at the end of this row. Okay. Now, got one more unit to put on, and guess what? The piecing part will be done. And I'll get a better camera view of this once we get the last section sewed on, but there it is so far. That's that zigzag effect. Okay. Yeah. Then it's the bottom. Here's the top. Right up there. Okay. Woohoo. Here we go. But you know, this particular quilt top, the pieces are large in it, so it's set together actually fairly quickly. Not all quilt tops will set together as fast as this one did. The other one we completed before this, the stone log cabin, I think it took longer to piece than this one did. I don't know, it didn't really take that long either. This next one, the lacy log cabin one, that's going to take a little bit longer to piece. I tell you, we are going to, and the more I think about it, everybody, we're just going to cut it like it is in the book. That'll make it easy. I'm not going to deviate from it on that one. But that'll make it super easy to get all of our pieces pre-cut when we start to cut everything. Yes, Beverly, these are class 15 bobbins, and they come in a plastic case like this. There's 25 on each side. Nice little storage case also, but these work perfectly in this machine. I use these in all of my baby lock machines that I've sewn on. They work fine. And even though they're colored, the bobbin sensor still works. That was my biggest concern. I bought them to try them out, to see how they would work and all that fun stuff. But almost, except for my long arm products or my serger, those bobbins will actually, or my Accomplish, those bobbins will actually work in all my baby lock machines. So it's all good. Okay, I can just use them whether I'm going from the Solaris, Altair, Meridian. Okay. Keep on keeping on. This part's almost done. Yeehaw. Okay. Getting towards the end of this seam, everybody. I'm excited. Then I just have my borders to get attached to work on, and it will truly be done then. Alrighty, there is that seam. Absolutely, Beverly. Alright, let's check this out, everyone. Let me set my box of bobbins back here out of the way. Okay. So I'm going to open this up and open this up. Then you can see the width of this. Check it out. It's pretty wide. And then it will have 10-inch borders all the way around, top and bottom, and the sides. But now, when you look at that, you can see where it gets that zigzag name. Oh yes, Linda, it does look like that's exactly what it reminded me of. My Meemaw, I know she had made a quilt top like that at some point in her life, but she used flour sack fabric, and that is what it really reminds me of. But there it is. Oops. Right there. And you can see the zigzag. If I hold it up this way, you can see those zigzags going down. Okay. So, the next step. I've already got 10-inch strips cut for my borders and my 10-inch squares for each corner. Just going to put that there and hold it in place for right now. I'm going to lock block out my screen so it doesn't, now it won't change anything. Okay, so here's what I came up with. This is all Tula Pink. This is what I'm using for the border. It was the closest thing to something where the word zigzag would come in mind, was this. Those are my borders. And then I fussy cut 4 of these for each one of the corners. It has a rabbit in it. See the pretty rabbit? That's going in each corner. Okay. But that's what I decided for my corners and my borders that I had in my stash. Okay, so first things first, I have to measure. I'm gonna attach the long sides first. Now I'm gonna get my handy dandy yardstick, and I am going to measure the length. I already know what it is because I measured it before, but I'm going to measure it again to make sure without stretching the fabric. There's 36. And 30, so that's 66. So I need 2 of these cut to 66 inches. So that's my first step. And I need my straight pins. Hold on. Okay. These are my straight pins I like that I can sew over. But right now I'm just going to mark it. I'm going to use a pin to mark 66 inches so I can rotary cut those off, trim them. Okay. Okay, here we go. So 36 and then 30 will make my 66-inch length that I need. Will be 36. Hey, Popo. And then I'm going to measure, put another pin in at the 30-inch mark. And I pre-cut these to about 70 inches. I knew it would be close to that. What is left over out of this will just go to my scrap pile. But that way, I didn't know what the width would be, but I was pretty sure my length would be close to 66. So right there where that pin's at, right there, I'm going to have to trim that. Let me move my camera. Let me swap my cameras, I should say. There we go. So. This out flat. Make sure you can see this on camera. Here we go. Just going to lay that out. I'm going to use this ruler right here. And I'm going to line up one of the lines on the ruler with the edge of that fabric. See how it is right there? Then I'm just going to move it down until it's lined up with that first insertion point for that pin, and I'm going to take the pin out. It's lined up down here, it's square. Now I'm going to trim this piece of fabric. And that'll be a scrap for another project. Oops. But I'm going to use this because I know the way I cut these strips, they're all exactly the same size. And what I'm going to do, I'm going use the piece I cut off to determine how much I'm going to cut off in the next one. So if I lay that out right there, I'm going to turn it so it's facing down. I'm going to line up the raw edge. And by having the back of the fabric up, it's going to be really easy to see. There we go, that's perfect. It really makes it easy to see how much I need to cut off. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to line the line up along the raw edge of the fabric up there, and then I'm just going to move it over so it just barely kisses that cut piece of fabric. And then I'm going to peel that top layer away, and I'm going to cut. The only reason I can do it that way, when I cut these 10-inch strips, they are all cut exactly the same size. So by using that type of a method, it'll come out perfect. That is now ready to sew on to the sides of my quilt. Okay. But the next measurement, because I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of my 10-inch borders. Let's see here, this one, yes. So next, I have to measure across this way and trim those strips to that correct size as well. Here we go. There's that one. And right there. I'm going to put in a pin. And then I'm going to measure it here. I just want to know what the measurement is. So that was 36 plus 19 and a quarter. 36 could actually make that 19 and a half. So 36 plus 19 and a half would be, drum roll, 36 and 19 and a half would be 54 and a half inches. Yes, so I need two borders cut at 54 and a half inches. That's my next two I have to cut. Okay. So, what that means is I'm going to measure one, and just like before, I want 54 and a half. So it was 36 and 19 and a half were my marks. There's 36. Okay. And then 19 and a half. There we go. Right there's my pen that I'm going to use to cut. Let me swap my camera back over. Get that all laid out nice and smooth. So I line up a line on the ruler with the raw edge, and just gently slide it over until that first pin insertion point is lined up at the edge of the ruler, and I'll remove the pin. There we go. Then I'm going to trim it with my rotary cutter ruler. And now that one my measurement for my top border, or the bottom one, because they'll both be the same. And like before, now I'm going to use this piece here that I could just cut off. I'm going to use that to trim the next piece off of this next border, so they're both exactly the same measurement. By doing it this way, oops, wrong way, right side up here, it's a piece I'm going to trim off of. This ups this with the wrong side up, and it makes it easy to see. Excuse me. Okay, right there. There, that's nice and neat and even now. I'm going to take my ruler, line one of the lines up along the raw edge, and slide it to that cut fabric just so that they barely kiss each other. Right there. Perfect. Now I'll remove the top layer. And trim. Now all four of my borders, top and bottom, up and down, are completely trimmed. And now I can start stitching all the borders on this quilt top. Okay. Woohoo! We are ready to get busy. Okay. Set that under there. Let's swap our camera. Okie dokie. Now then, for the ones I just cut, my short ones, I'm going to sew my 10-inch corners on before I attach anything to my quilt. Then all four pieces will be ready to sew to the quilt. So what I'm going to do, I just have to make sure that both corners on each side of the strip are facing in the same direction. So that one will go there like that. Zoom in some. There we go. That one will go on there like that. So I'm just going to flip it over and stitch it down before I go any further. Okay. Get my foot control over some. There we go. Line that up a little bit better. There we go. And yes, I'm going to stitch and then reverse stitch, back stitch, just to have these edges nice and neat. Because on these seam lines, especially on the border, that's where, once it's quilted, that's where some tension will be put when it's stretched in the frame to be quilted. And you don't want those coming undone, for sure. So there's that one. Check that orientation again. Let's set these down here. Yeah. I'll set them out of my way for the time being anyway. So there's that one. Now if I come to this other end of this strip, I'm going to just leave them in place. I know my next one on the opposite end needs to be facing the same direction. Right there, like so. Yes. See that little rabbit's facing, they'll both be in the same direction. Yeah, if you personally wanted to do this and swap up their orientation, you could, but I like mine to be facing the same direction. Okay, so let's get that one sewn in. It's a wabbit. I like rabbits. They're so cute. Okay, here we go. And I have one more to do, and those will be all done. Okay. I just saw this. I forgot to close my blade. Everybody, when you finish cutting with your rotary cutter, make sure you close the blade so you don't accidentally cut yourself or someone else, because those things are extremely, extremely sharp. Okay, one more. There, and they're going to go in this direction. So by doing the corner, by having these particular directional cornerstones in, this will definitely have a top and a bottom, a very discernible top and bottom to this quilt top. Hello, bunny. Let's just move it down this way. That way I know I have it correct. Excuse me. Right there. So we'll just lay it right over. Then we're going to stitch it in that orientation. Okay. Line that up a little bit better, Mr. Richard. There we go. Okay. And I'll line up the other end, then we're going to stitch it down. Of my corners sewn in. Now, I did flip that. I saw that and I started to freak, but see, they're both in the same direction. Here's top, bottom, top, bottom. Okay, so those are all set. Those go on last. We're going to do the sides first. Okay, so on the sides, what I like to do with the border, I like to mark the center, and I'm going to mark it with a pin, simply because what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the centers and the ends of the borders and then pin in between. That way, your borders should fit, lay nice and flat with your quilt. Right there. Grab one of my border strips and fold it in half. Right there. I'm going to put a pin there. Then I can just match those center pins and pin it in place, match each end, and then just a few pins in between those 3 points, and they'll be ready to sew down. Okay. So here's what I was talking about. Now all I have to do to line up the center of the border to the center of the side of that quilt is hold those together and just match up the pins. Easy peasy. Right there. Now I'll put a pin in to hold that little, set that little point in place. There we go. Now that is the center. Now I'm going to come down to one of the ends. And line it up. My hand's wanting to cramp. Okay. Quit finger. R. There we go. That's lined up. Now, if I hold these together, check that out. I'm holding, let me back it up some more, show you what I'm doing. Here you can see how accurate that is. By holding it together there, it's laying flat all the way from one pin to the other, but I'm going to put a few pins in between just so that it holds it, it just makes it easier to feed through by having a few pins going the entire length. Okay. Now we'll do the same up here on the other side from the center. There we go. And that one lines up really well as well. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. And just put a few pins in this direction, just so once I start sewing, it's easy to line up the raw edges of the fabric. And that was another reason I always do this, because it looked like it was wanting to like bubble just a little bit. It's all good. Just making, this is what you just call fitting in the border. Okay, so now we're going to sew that seam down. I'll back it up a hair. There we go. Okay. Gonna get, this is one of the side borders. So we'll get that on. Stitch down, and I can just sew right over this particular type of a pin. You can just stitch right over them. Still going to tie off each end of that seam. Okay, I'm just going to take my time and work it all the way down. Have a bit more bulk to contend with here. Ow. Okay. There we go. I'm just going to take that off as we go now. Now, when I'm sewing, I do not watch the needle, everybody. I watch the edge of my presser foot. That's where I have my eyes focused, just so I keep everything lined up on that 1/4 inch mark as I'm feeding it through the machine. there's my center mark pin right there. That's where the center of the border and the quilt top met up. Okay. And now we're getting it. Now we is getting it. There we go. Stop cramping, hand. Yes, those are magic pins, everybody. Love these pins. They are my favorite pins. I have used a lot of pins, but these in particular, they're so fine, you can just stitch right over them, no problems. Check it out. I'm not going to remove that one. Easy peasy. Whether you're piecing on a quilt or sewing, setting in sleeves on a garment, it's nice to have pins that you can just sew right over. Just make sure you don't let the silicone go under your presser foot because it could throw your seam allowance off. Yes, these pins have a silicone tip to them. You see that pink right there? Which means you can iron over them and it won't melt or crack anything. Love those pins. Sewn on, everybody. Woohoo! Yeehaw! The thing is, if you sew over them, you got to remember to take them out. I have forgotten to do that in the past. You just make sure, just check out your seam and pull out your pins. Now let's preview what that border looks like stitched on down the side. Right there it is. Okay. So we're going to do the opposite side now. That would be next. Once again, I'm going to fold that side in half that I'm going to attach the border to. I am going to fold it in half and get the center point of that side of the quilt top. And since these are diamonds, it will not be on a seam line, everybody. If these were squares and rectangles, it's very possible the center point would actually be a seam line. But if they're diamond shapes that you've done piecing in, more than likely that is not the way it's going to be. Oh, come here, you. There you is. There you are. And I had already marked. That's not right. That was from cutting. So, I'm going to fold that in half, find my center point. Right there. Stick in a pin. There we go. And now I will line up the two pins just like I did before. Right there. See how I got those two pins lined up? Right there. Now I'll pull them out and pin that together. There we go. There is the pin for the center of the other side. Now, once again, we'll just go down to the very end and pin that in. test stretch. Perfect. Now I'll just randomly, every foot or so, 10 inches, whatever, just going to put in a pin that will actually just help keep the raw edges lined up. Now to the other end. We're going to put a pin in the other end. Everyone, a lot of the tools that I use, I have links underneath the video in a description where there are some Amazon links if your local retailer does not have them or can't get them. There is a link where you can order them from Amazon. Okay, so it's ready to stitch this side down. Okay. Ready to let it go. We're going to get this side all stitched down. Woohoo! And sometimes I just go ahead and pull them out, and then I hold on to the next pin below that. And then I'll just hold that back towards me and line it all up. It just makes it super easy. Makes it super easy to line up that way. So let's see. This is the sides of it, right? So the finished dimensions of my version of the cool zigzag quilt, it will be, let me think here, 19 and a half and 36 is 54 and a half plus 20. It will be approximately 74 by 86 inches. Is what mine will have worked out to be. It makes it easy when you have a 10-inch border to figure out that number while you're just sitting here sewing. Don't really need a calculator for that one. 10's easy to add. Okay, I'm going to take that pin out. There we go, and just kind of smooth it so it's nice and flat. But as you can see, by pre-cutting your borders to an exact length, your quilt top is going to be extremely square once you finish sewing on the borders. Okay, everybody, hold on just a second. You're wanting to know about the bobbins, right? So let me just see something here. Oops, go back up. Go back up, you. I will look something up real quick on my computer. Let's see here. Bum, 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 bum. Bump. Yeah, so there's not a link under the video for.
There you are. Had to find my camera. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Saturday's edition.
There we go. I had a video playing, everybody. I got to hear me from a different episode. But anyway, what I was going to say to you is this. Yeah, those are made by Hemline, Hemline, and any baby lock retailer can order those in for you as far as that goes. I normally have those here in our shop. I'm just they're back ordered on me right now. But normally a lot of the stuff that I have in our little shop here in Illinois as well. Okay. Let's see, I lost my chat window. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Alrighty. There are the side borders put on. Check it out. There it is. There's the side border. Now I'm going to put the top and bottom on, and I have to be very careful that the rabbets are orientated in the proper way. So this is the top of the quilt right here. And here is one of my top and bottom borders with the rabbits, and I want them in this orientation. Okay. So what I'm going to do first, let me see here. I'm going to mark my center point on this. But what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to match up this seam line from where the corners are, and then mark the center point down this way. There's the seam line for the corners. Then here's the actual center of the border, and I'm going to put a pin right there. Because since I altered the pattern and I have an even number of rows, vertical rows, I will have a seam line for the center of my piecing. But technically, you should just fold this in half and do the same thing. However, let's see here. Let's see how I've got this. Hold on. There. Needed to have done the other side. So this will be for my bottom. My bottom border will be that one. And I'll do it again here for the top. I'll use this one for my top border. I'm going to mark the center of it. Go like this. Right. Right. I want to mark the bottom part of the top border with the pin because that's where I will line this one up at, right there. Okay. There we go. Now that's ready to pin onto the top of the quilt, right? Right. Correct orientation. This will go here like this. So, 2, 4, 6. That should be the center. 2, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Right here is the center. Okay. So I want to line up this pin with this seam line on mine. Or whatever the center of your quilt top is, that's what you want to line it up. Right there. That would be perfect. It is perfect, actually. Okay, so that's lined up. There are my centers. Now, I have another seam line I can match because that is where this seam on the border will line up with this seam where the corner block matches the other seam right here like so. I'll hold it up once I get it lined up, everybody. My hand is wanting to cramp really bad, so I'm moving a little slow. There we go, right there like that. See those two seams? That seam, line them up, nest the seams with each other, nesty nest, pin it, I'm also going to pin the very end. Right there. Okay. Then just a couple of pins in between the center to right here, just to hold the raw edges in place. Now what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to put the borders underneath. I'm going to set it so that the quilt top is on top and these borders are laying down like this. That way when I go through and stitch, I can make sure that I'm hitting the points in this area right here. Because when I fold that over, I can see exactly where I need the needle to hit so the points stay sharp. Excuse me. Now let's get this one pinned. Hey everybody, after I get this seam line sewn, I have one more seam line to go and this quilt top will be completely finished and ready to quilt. How awesome is that? Okay, there's that one. We'll just stick a couple of pins every so often down this way just to hold the raw edges together. Right there. And we're ready to stitch this one down. So like I said, I'm going to put this side on the bottom so that I can see my marks to hit the points so that I don't chop off a point. You know, it's very important, especially on triangles and diamonds. to do that, if at all possible. If it's off a little bit, you know what? You'll be okay. But I try my best to make sure that they're not off. I will not rip it out 100 times to make that happen, I guess is what I should say. Okay, so here we go. And by pinning, boy howdy, everything stays nice and lined up. And all that good stuff. Okay, now here's where I'm going to pay attention. When I have a peak, like right here, let me zoom in. Oops, wrong way. There we go. See how these two angles come up? Well, I want to make sure that when I sew over this, I'm not cutting off or sewing, not going into that point, because I want my points to remain as sharp as possible. I hope that made sense. Let's see here. Right there, I think. That way or that way? This way. There we go. Right there like that. Okay. Reposition everything and then keep on going. This is just where you want to take your time when you have those points to hit so you don't chop off anything. Whenever possible. I will say this, the next one of these I make, I will not use white thread because it's very difficult to see where the stitching is in the seam lines, and it makes it nice if you can see the actual thread stitching. So I'd probably use a light gray. I will use light gray to piece with the next time I make this particular pattern. It just makes this part a whole lot easier to do. Okay. Right there. Okay. Almost to that magical halfway point. I'm just flattening out all of these seams as much as possible. And then I'm using my laser light thingy to line up that needle light with the conjunction of these seams right here so that point stays sharp. See how horrible of a job I've done once I do finish this seam. I can tell you though, whatever it is, I am not ripping this time. If it's off a little bit, I can mask it when I quilt it if I have to. We'll see. As long as it's not super bad, it'll be good. There you go. Okay. Just keeping on at this point, everybody. Almost there. Okay. And another reason, when you have a lot of heavier seams, put those on top, because then you can kind of smooth them out and flatten them up as much as you can. If you can see them, if you can't see them and they were on the bottom, you have no control over how they're going to lay in the seam. So it just makes it easier to actually manipulate. And what I'm talking about is a point like this here where there's a lot of seams. That way I can manipulate it and make it easier to stitch over and all that fun stuff. Okay, there you go. Get under there, you. Alrighty. There we go. We almost have that one done. We'll leave that pin in. That keeps that seam aligned. Alrighty. We're almost down to this one here, everybody. Okay, that one's done. Now I'm gonna make sure I pull out all of these pins before I do anything else, because I left quite a few of them in on this row. There was a lot of more pinning than normal, but hey, it's all good. It just makes sure that you're going to be precise. Let's open this up and have a look. Okay. As you can notice, by pinning that, see how those corners right there worked right up. There's the little rabbit. This is the top of the quilt. And what I was so careful about was right here. Notice I did not cut off the point where those lines meet up. That's what I was being so careful about. Right there. That conjunction right there. Perfect. Now, guess what? We're going to add the other one to the bottom of the quilt. And then the quilt top, will be complete. Yardstick, I'm done with you. You can go away. Alrighty. Here we go. We're going to get this one pinned on. Woohoo! And then this beautiful quilt top will be done. And I'll talk a little bit more about our next project after this is complete. Okay, so first, this is the bottom, so I want my rabbits in this direction. They'll go on down here. Oops, back that up some. They will go on here, right here, like so. Okay, so what first thing I gotta do, I gotta find the center of this. This is the edge up here that I will pin to, and I already have the pin put in it. Right there, there's my center point. So, if this is going to go here like this, I just need to flip it over. Okay. Then I'm going to find my center seam, or the center of this top, which would be, let me see here. 1, 2, 3. This would be the center. And yes, that would be the center. So I'm going to put a pin on each side of that center mark. There we go. And then once again, I'm just going to line up the ends of that row. And that seam, those two will line up. There we go. Always nest those seams when you're lining up seam lines. That's how you can get it to be super duper precise. Okay, then we'll just put a pin every other row just to hold the raw edges in place. And just like before, we'll have these little points to manipulate to keep them sharp as we go down. That way we don't stitch off and chop off a point. Nobody wants that. We don't want our points chopped, do we? I don't think so. Ouch. We also don't want to stick our finger with the pin if we can keep from it. Now I'll do the same down to this other side. Where are you at? Right there. There we go. Ouch. Right there we go. Okay. And everybody, this is a way that you can really fit something in, especially on a quilt. Do the same thing if you ever whenever you make a garment, but this is how you fit before you sew anything together. If you wanted to, you could actually base this seam to test it, pin it, you could baste it, and then if something doesn't line up or match out, you could reposition it with the base, take the basting stitch out for that little area, baste it again to make it match, and then sew over it with your final seam. So there's many ways you can actually do that. And it's all good. There's no wrong way as far as that goes. What matters is, honestly, if it ends up, if you finish it and you're happy with it, that's all that's important. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. The only thing is, you're the one that has to be happy with it because it's your quilt. Okay. Just so, be happy. That's all we got to do. Okay, there's those. A few more down here, I think. Nope, those are done. We're ready to sew the final seam on this quilt top. Woohoo! I'm so excited. Really, I am. Oh my gosh. This one is almost done. Last seam on the quilt top, everybody. Okay, let's zoom in so everyone can get a good look. Here comes the final seam for this quilt top. That's right. Yes. Okay. Okay, there's that started. Now let me straighten up my bulk so this will feed through nice and easy. There we go. And then we're just going to match everything from pin to pin to pin. Let's take that one out. There we go. Okay. our sewing, we are off. The race is on. But it's not a race because we're going to take our time and enjoy the ride. Because quite honestly, the last seam when piecing a quilt top is the ultimate best seam in an entire quilt. Because this means the quilt top will be done when we finish this seam. And that always makes it extra special. Straighten this up. There we go. There's my center point right there. We're getting there, everybody. Woohoo! Those, that's a bulky seam right there. I just want to be able to excuse me, manipulate it really well. There. Let's see, how will it go best? That way? Nope. I'm actually going to pull it over towards that way. There we go. That lined up perfectly. There we go. That quilt top's wanting to twist on me, which is making the fabric, with the bottom fabric wanting to bunch up a little bit. That's why I keep stopping. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now that's nice and smooth. Almost there, everybody. Woohoo! Yoo-hoo! Okay. And here is the end of the seam for this quilt top, everybody, right here. That's how close we are. I'm just going to pop that one out. And there it is. Let's have a look. I'm gonna remove all the pins. Let's take just a second. Then we're gonna have a look at it. Then we're gonna have a look at it. Alrighty. There and there. I believe that is all of the pins for this quilt. And I'll never get all of this on camera, but we're gonna have a go at it. Okay, open it as wide as I can. Move that camera completely out of the way. There we go. Check it out. Right here. Oops. There we go. Let's get one corner up so you can at least see this part. There we go. Right here. There's the rabbit. Woohoo. Pretty, pretty. It actually looks, it really looks nice. I'm happy with it. It does pull on some of the blue in the border for the colors that are in the top also. So it's all good. So, next, let's look at something here. We're going to look at that book for our next and talk about our next projects. There we go. Okay. That turned out to be a pretty nice size quilt top. Excuse me. So, next in the book, let's see. We are going to do, it's back this way, I think. Right here. This is the next one in the list to do, right here. Yes, thank you, Linda. I think it does too. And I don't know, on camera it looks like really contrasty, but in looking at it from my perspective, the lighter blues in this, it's more like a greenish blue. Well, this fabric has the color in it. This fabric has those colors in it. And even some of the darker blues are in this fabric right next to it as well. So it does pull it in. It does pull it all in together. So this is the next one we're going to do on camera, everybody. So you'll probably have a good 2 weeks if you want to do this with me on camera. It'll be about 2 weeks before we start this. Okay. So that 2 to 3 weeks. That way it'll give us all it'll give us all the opportunity to get the fabric we need for this quilt top. Whether you're using Kaffe or something else, I am going to get the Kaffe fabric for this one myself. Okay? So, in the book, there is the yardage you will need for this quilt. We are going to follow the directions to the letter, because when it comes to it, and we go to the next page, oops, we have exact cutting instructions of how long to exactly cut these strips to sew in together, and it will make it super easy to do. So we're doing next is the Lacy Log Cabin on page 62. Okay? Another one I like that I think we'll do after that. This is what we're going to do after that one. Let me find it. There's a color photo of it here. There we go. I love this one. We're going to do that one after the lacy log cabin is this quilt right here. The instruction for it is on, let's see here. Where are your instructions at? It's called Losing My Marbles. Right here. I just love this one. That will be a fun one to do. Wonderful, Linda. You'll love the book. Plenty of instructions. I think, let's see. This is a scrappy quilt, so you can actually use a lot of your scraps if you have them. This is all going to be done in CAFE. But if you don't have a lot of scraps, you could actually use some pre-cuts and some charm squares to help. But especially for these, the circles are appliqued. The circles are appliqued on squares of fabric, so this is something to be thinking of. This next quilt, the lacy log cabin, that will be our project to finish by the end of September. Lacy log cabin. It's going to take a couple weeks for us to all get the fabric together for it. But I'll still be doing other things. But this one, our goal is to have that quilt top completed by the end of September. Okay, it'll be a couple weeks before we start on it. Right now is the time to actually get the fabric together, and then our very first video will be how to cut it. Okay, and then the one after that one, just so you know, this is what I plan. This is on my list. We're going to do this one next, Losing My Marbles. I love the title to it. But that one's on page 115. This other one is on page 62. Next is Lacy Log Cabin on page 62. After that will be this one called Losing My Marbles. Will be a lot of fun. And I have some ideas how to make this go a whole lot easier, but we'll talk about that in the future. How big are those squares? Let's see here. So the squares are 3.5 inch squares finished. That means those would be 4-inch cut squares. Okay. The circles, now in the book they do hand applique. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, everybody, I'm not going to do hand applique. Do all of you have an embroidery machine with a hoop in it? Doesn't have to be a big one, as long as it'll do. Even the Baby Lock Verve could do this one with a 4-inch hoop. Because let me know, I will create the applique file for these circles for this quilt. I am not hand stitching down all this applique. Yes, they are, Vanessa, aren't they? Vanessa, it was so awesome to meet you yesterday in St. Louis. You and your daughter. That was so totally cool. And also, perfect, Vanessa, that you can do this on a PE 800 as well. That is absolutely, you have at least a 5x7 or a 4x4 hoop for that, I think. Does that come with a 4-inch by 4-inch hoop, Vanessa? I'm not sure. I think it does. But we'll totally be able to do this applique on our embroidery machines. and I will create a PES file so that everybody can get that. I have a place where you can download it. Perfect. Oh, thank you, Vanessa. I love you too. You're my buddy. Okay, but once again, next quilt up is Lacy Log Cabin, and after this one, we're going to do a very modern quilt called Losing My Marbles. And I have to tell you, everybody, sometimes I feel like this. Yes, there are days when I actually think I am just going to lose my marbles, everybody. Hi, Eugenia. How are you today? Hey, Eugenia, what part of Texas are you in? I will be in Austin next Friday and Saturday. So, yeah, those are the next two. Once again, Lacy Log Cabin is next, page 62 in the book. And then after that one is Losing My Marbles on page 115 in the book. I just love this one. This one is very bright and colorful. It'll be fun. How big is that quilt? This would be a beautiful wall quilt to hang on a wall. I think it would anyway. When I get that one done, it's going up on my wall in my studio, everybody. Okay. Oh. Yeah, it's not bad. This quilt finish is only 60 by 60 inches, so that'll be an easy one to do. And I tell you what, I will quilt this one on camera on the Solaris using the new edge-to-edge featuring on the Fincher. Oh, cool. That'll be a fun one to quilt in the hoop. Let's see, how big is this other one? The other one I know is too big. Yeah, it's 72 by 72. Could totally quilt that one in the hoop, but that one will go into my long arm. This one I will quilt in the hoop. Okay. Here's a close-up picture of that. So the background for this one will be super easy to cut, just 4-inch squares of fabric. Super duper easy. Okay. That's pretty too. What else is in here? Let's see. That's kind of cool, the little houses on there. What's that called? Cassetta. Uses a lot of striped fabric. Looks like there's a lot of piecing from the distance, but these houses are just striped fabric. That's all those are. That's really cool looking. And let's see. Always gotta love a good tumbling block, which is what that is. There'd be Y seams in that one, everybody. Just so you know, if we decide to do that one. Don't know that we will. I'll make sure after the next two we do a fast and easy one. Oh yeah, Linda, you should have your upgrade by then. Okay, there you go, everybody. So next is Lacy Log Cabin, and after that is Losing My Marbles. I just love the title of that one. Okay, so, let me do this. Hold on. Right there. Coffee time. So everybody, that's what we have for you today. We just finished our cool zigzag quilt, a part of the series of our Quilts in Italy series that we're doing right now. And our next quilt will be the Lacy Log Cabin quilt on page 62 in the book, right here, Lacy Log Cabin. That's our next one, and the one after that is on page 115, I think. Yes. Page 115. And it's called Losing My Marbles, right here. This is the one after Lacy Log Cabin. So we just finished quilt number 2, quilt top number 2. This will be quilt top number 4, and Lacy Log Cabin on page 62 will be quilt top number 3. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, with this episode of Quilts in Italy. I will see you all this next Friday. If not before, I may come on during the week. I doubt it. I've got a lot to get done before I head out on Wednesday for Texas. But I will be live from Austin, Texas on Friday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a super great week. I love each and every one of you, and I will see you next Friday night. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Bye.